All right, check, radio check. We are at the Apple time hour. It's 4:30. Want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules. If somebody on the call would mind typing in the chat that you can hear me, see me, we'll go ahead and get started. Good. Um, Thank you, Harold. Glad to see you. First, I just want to say, if I could ask for all of you to pray for one of our clients that's been on this call in the past. He called me Friday and he had gotten out of surgery. And this is a young man that I met through Rutgers. He's an alumni, been to my presentations, and over the years we became friends. And, he's up in northern Jersey, but it was a little shocking. And it just reminds us how vulnerable we are. So, although we're going to talk about this, he had gone in and just gotten out of surgery, and he's been diagnosed with a brain tumor. Fast forward to this week on Monday, I just got notification. I have not spoken to him since. They went in for surgery again and got 95% of the mass, but he still doesn't have mobility and feeling on the left side of his body. And, this is 58 years old. This is a man that I'm working with and planning and doing all the stuff that we do. And this is why I'm just adamant about saying, as we go through this journey of life, as we're trying to figure out, hey, do I have enough income, revenue? Where are we going to live? What are we going to do? Make sure that we're taking that time to spend time with our loved ones, hug the ones we're with, and that we just keep them in our prayers. And I won't get overly uh, just emotional, but there's several clients that have I've come to know and call friends that have been put in challenging situations in my mind very early in life. So I just always know that you guys are in my prayers, and you mean a lot to me. And so hopefully I continue to bring value and friendship. And if you ever need anything, just reach out. All right, so if you've not been on this call before, basically these calls we started in COVID. They're going to start to change probably in the next year. We're going to try and do these as frequently as we can. But COVID is lifted. And the whole reason that we started these weekly chats with Chris was to bring financial topics that were important, relevant. And one of the ones that I think is a little bit of a unique value proposition is we're taking a rear view mirror look at the markets. So although this says May 2025, and you'd be like, okay, what's going on right now? I think that's too reactionary. I think that with all good plans, I think ships can weather storms. It's when we get emotional and we don't have guidance or a strategy or a course in action that we can fall sort of get off path, or maybe something, like just a month ago. You're going to see here, April, was a lot of volatility, and a lot of people were feeling angst and what's going on. And that's why I'm glad to be able to talk about it now, because now when you take a look back, a rear view mirror approach, you go, oh, things did settle down, or things did come back, or and that's the one thing, is that the one absolute in life that I've learned along the way is that change is inevitable. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the growth indices, and you can see that almost all the indices, except the powder blue, which is Europe, was pretty much in the negative. And so that makes it a little bit problematic. And
Chris, we can't see your screen.
uh, thank you.
I can see it.
All right.
Yeah, so it shows I'm sharing. Harold, can you see my screen? Just type in the chat for me.
You're good, Chris.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, as we look, through the growth indices, we see that everything was under pressure. And then, so this is 1 month, and you can see that, early in the month it was just a sell-off and then there's been attempts at recovery. But I think when you back out just a little bit and we look at the whole year, you can really become evident. This is, akin to fear, panic, change, right? Markets and when influenced by emotion, right? People tend to feel better sitting on the sidelines. And our experience has been, don't be reactionary. When you have a strategy over time, right? Because we're planning for longer term, and we try and use segmented or strategies to be able to say, hey, as fluctuations happen, if you're well diversified with a culmination of approaches, you're not going to fall prey to what one index may have experienced unless you're 100% in just that index. And then yes, and that's very typical of federal employees, right, where they have very limited options, right? So something like the C fund, right, which is primarily the S&P, and you say, hey, I'm okay, I'm not retiring for 10 years, and now we've heard that joke before, your 401k became almost a 201k overnight. People don't like that feeling, and then they say, oh, I'm not going to open my statement. While we're working, we have the ability to recover. We can continue to dollar cost average into markets. We can look at things and say, you know what? Because things went down and maybe retirement is 5 years off, we don't have to be so myopic and look at it and say, hey, it's a 30-day set of lenses, and I'm going to base all my strategies based on that. What we like to do is take more of a macro approach, look at where we're trying to get to, and just smooth the curve, right? We're never going to be fully. It gave me a lot of pleasure. I had a client meeting with a brand new client, that just moved funds for a portion of their portfolio, and it was only down a little bit, right? And I mean, it's not like we don't experience losses too. We're just not going to take it on the chin. So I just try and share with people that, diversification, strategies, and as I look at this, I say the powder blue, Europe is winning the day, but the bottom of the pack, the dog is small caps, which are small businesses here in the United States. They have absolutely in April took it on the chin. Now, do see recovery. I do think that a lot of the news that we're hearing will be long-term beneficial for the overall U.S. economy. So I think we're heading in the right direction. But my takeaway for everybody here on the call is just be patient. Don't be reactionary. Turn the TV off. If you got questions, reach out, and we can build strategies that help us to sleep better at night. And then as we look at the three wise men, right, we have three indicators. If you've not seen this chart before, we have the relative strength index, which is RSI up at the top. And when all three of these indicators, then you have the moving average, right? So it's a 30-day over 90-day. And then you have the MACD, moving average convergence divergence, which is a momentum indicator. You have these three indicators. We have a red line here that happened back in January, which says there will continue to probably be some downward pressure on equities. Until this line creates back to a green, doesn't mean that we should not be in equities. As a matter of fact, if you're working, we should be dollar cost averaging on the way down. But history has shown that over time, things will tend to drift back up and to the right. But you got to be in it. So I just point that out to you to say, hey, listen, I have no real cause for concern. I hear the news, and I think that the current administration is trying their best to start to put the course of America and ultimately our American taxpayer pocketbooks in a direction that will ultimately benefit all of us. That's my personal opinion, politics aside. Now when we get into, the income portfolios, this is I started to find a little interesting in April, under pressure as well, right? The income portfolios for the month of April were almost negative. And when we look at the full year, we're okay, right? We're a little bit above, but nothing to say, oh my God, the sky is falling. So there really wasn't anything that said to me, hey, you know what? We should be sitting on the sidelines or looking for bond alternatives again. There's a number of things that I do on income portfolios which aren't necessarily bond driven, but it is a philosophy that a large segment of America takes. We need to look at it. We need to understand, are we where we need to be from an income generating portfolio? But what I found interesting was the chart because we did trip into a red line. So if you remember from last month, we were green and we were almost crossing over. Well, in April, we crossed over. And so that just tells me, hey, the Fed, and as they start to try and curb, we may start to see signs of inflation start to spike its head again. They're going to try and get out in front of it. They're going to have to cut rates. The sentiment is that they probably will by the end of the year several times. That will ultimately help mortgage rates, which are right now, I think a 30-year mortgage about 6.89, right? So, funding and buying a house with mortgage rates back to what my father and mother were somewhere when they bought their first house in Edison, New Jersey. I think the interest rate was 14%. The norm used to be 6, 7%. Trying to get America to understand that that is a true long-term lending cost will take a while to integrate into the American economy. In the meantime, inflation will be something that needs to be checked because, again, when you're paying $92.77 for a dozen eggs, something's broken. So, I've given serious thought to building a chicken coop out back and getting some chickens and letting them run around. And not only would they eat ticks off the property, but I could get some protein and get some eggs and maybe even put a stand out front and sell them. So who knows? Maybe if things continue this way, I might consider it. But the good news is, and we'll talk about this next month, May is looking optimistic, right? But I don't want us to take our eye off the ball. Things can still go left. There's a whole lot going on. I mean, when you think about the news cycles in all the areas where there are headlines, right? It's enough to make you go like, oh my God, I can't turn on the TV anymore, right? And I get it. I try not to influence my other people's opinions. I try and do my own research, come to my own conclusions based on what I see, and I always come to one bottom line thought process. Follow the money. Who has the loudest voice? Who is saying what? And how are they getting paid? And when people somehow are objecting to a bloated government, I have to say to myself and ask myself, why? Why, as a business owner, and I had this call last week, as a business owner, we have all of these other considerations, right? And I won't take a lot of our time talking about what goes into a business, the risk with owning a business, the chance of failure with the business, to be able to turn around and say, hey, we've made it. We are now at a point where we're making a profit and we're working hard, but that doesn't happen overnight, right? Businesses dedicate their entire lives to some type of successful recipe. So when somebody from the government comes along and says, hey, I work for the government, and I immediately, in my mind, and this is my opinion, don't think government helps a business profit or stay liquid or profitable long term, right? They may claim, oh, well, we helped you. Not really if you have your hand in my pocket, but especially when the person that is citing their position is being paid by the government. I smell a rat. And that's why I'm constantly a little biased towards politicians, both sides of the aisle. Don't care, right? If you're being paid by the government, whether it be municipal, whether it be state, whether it be federal, and you step out and you're on a payroll, you're getting a pension, you're getting health benefits for life. I understand as a taxpayer where all that stuff comes from, and I go, WTF, right? How did I miss that class? But anyway, I share this with you because I'm looking at the next line is the probability of a recession. Now, you see this purple line is between 60 and 30, right? And it's now at 30% and it's ticked up. And as I look at right now where the economists are suggesting, where are we at as a country? Is a recession likely on the radar? This RPA is a recession probability analytic tool. It basically says, hey, you know what? If we're above 50, we're much more likely to experience a recession in the next 12 months on a look forward. And if that happens, I think a lot of people will be feeling pain. With a lot of the turmoil in the government, right? A lot of government positions being evaporated, people being asked to retire early, given buyout options, right? All of these things, right? Now, when you look at it and you say, hey, if the government, if people stop buying, if credit dries up, all the things that are associated with recession were to happen, how would you, if you're on this call, do you have 3 to 6 months of liquid reserves? 12 months is ideal to be able to pay your bills and allow things to recover. And most people, I think the majority of Americans do not. And so that to me is also another problem. So when we're looking at planning, when we're forecasting for the future, it's very easy for me to sit here and tell you what you should do. I am not a preacher. I'm not sitting here telling people how to live their lives. It's your money. I'm a guide, and I am going to share with you things that I've experienced and I've learned through my 30 plus years career. That's what we at Professional Planning Services do. We guide you. We help you to be aware of pitfalls, tripwires, booby traps, things that could go wrong, because everything's fine until it's not. And that's why, at least with the person that I mentioned at the beginning of this call that was diagnosed with a brain tumor, or the gentleman that I went to see this week that has the early onsets of early stage dementia, right? Nothing gives me greater satisfaction that I've done my job, that I've offered solutions, and people have taken my advice and stepped into a role of protection. I hope for the best, but we plan for that worst case scenario. What happens if something doesn't go according to plan? So if we can help you and your family in any way, please don't keep us a secret. You're going to see we're hitting the road a lot more. Our activity of Professional Planning Services is really ramping up. I've literally been on the road the last 3 weeks all over the country. So being back, but this brings me to my next slides, which is next week my daughter has her high school prom tomorrow. Next week, I know I'm traveling again the next 2 weeks. There's only one more call. So write this down so you don't show up. Only one more call, and that'll be on 6/12. We're not going to have a market update in June for May, but we will have, I'll have the slides built, so I will have the data. And our next update will actually be in July, which will be a rear view for June. But my point is, our next call will be on 6/12. So, we'll have next week, 5/22, we'll have 2 off, and then we'll have 1 more. So if you see this little bit of maybe not every week like I was, just check the calendar, go to our website, make sure that you're staying in tune, text me, call me, email me, because we do appreciate your time. I'm not trying to, to not communicate, doing the best that we can, trying to share our schedules with you, bring you value as we continue to move forward through this life together. Remember, if nobody told you they love you today, let me be the first. I want to make sure that if you need me, I'm here, and I don't just say that. It's not just freaking shtick, right? If I can help you or your family some way, if it's within my power, I will. So please reach out. So without further ado, that's our call today. I want to thank everybody for being on the call, and have a great day.